When traveling through the underworld of Earth's dreamlands, beware the Ghasts. While I desperately searched the blackness of the vaults of Zin for a passage which might lead to its wondrous spire, I emerged from a narrow passage onto a balcony that overlooked a great chamber. It was filled with the dim purple light of phosphorescent fungi. Within the chamber I saw several creatures, each the size of a small horse, huddled together as they devoured some unfortunate beast with their hooked claws. They had grotesque and scabrous skin that oozed a thick and deep red pus. As I looked upon their faces, I saw some semblance of vague humanity, but without noses, foreheads, and other hallmarks of human facial structure. I knew at once that they must be Ghasts, for the Zoogs had warned me of these beasts. In the darkness of the vaults they prey upon Gug, Ghoul, and Dreamer alike. This is either because of a deliberate disregard for the kind of flesh they consume, or perhaps because they are unable to discriminate between the creatures they prey upon. To them, I fear, all flesh is merely meat. As I studied them closer, I saw more clearly what they were doing. They were breaking open a corpse of one of their own kind, with their hard and pointed hooves, and consuming it. The difficult conditions in which they live do not allow them to cultivate a respect for their dead. Instead, they view the carcass of the fallen as merely nourishment for their grotesque and hellish bodies. Then, from another door that opened into the main floor of the chamber, I saw a lone, hunched ghoul wander in, evidently lost and unaware of the presence of the Ghasts. As it entered the chamber, one of the Ghasts must have smelled the ghoul, if smelled you call it, being that it had only black cavities where its nose should be. The Ghast lifted its head, pointing its noseless face to the arched ceiling, and slurped the air down its throat with a disgustingly wet sound. Then it called to the others, braying in a language of guttural coughs and ejecting chunks of greenish-yellow phlegm as it did so. Evidently the others understood, and they took up the call to assault the ghoul. The poor ghoul hardly had time to react. It took only a few long bounding leaps with their powerful hind legs to close the distance between themselves and the ghoul. They hooked the flesh of the ghoul with their claws, drew him near, and one sunk its fangs into the ghoul's shoulder. It was injecting its painful paralytic venom into his bloodstream. It did not take long for the venom to take effect. Then the Ghast dragged the paralyzed but likely still conscious ghoul to their feeding place, where they consumed it, ripping at its body with their muzzles. Of all the horrific features of the Ghasts, there is at least one thing to be thankful for, and that is that they cannot exist in sunlight. Though they can endure the twilight for many hours, and will from time to time venture out into it, they prefer to remain in the dark, where they can hunt their prey by smell. I had the unfortunate opportunity to witness a Ghast struck by sunlight. The only positive part of it was that, when it was over, at least the Ghast was dead. But it was no less vile in its sunlight-induced death throes than it was when living its wretched life underground. When I saw the sunlight hit the Ghast, its skin boiled and festered, and the creature ultimately disintegrated into a horrid mass of steaming goo. The sunlight liquefied its skin and muscle tissue as a renderer might turn fat into tallow, until there was only a mass of blacked bones and coarse hair among the steaming heap of death where the Ghast had been. An excerpt from the second scroll of Barzai, written by Barzai the Wise, High Priest of Ulthar,